Good evening, everybody. Welcome to the podcast show. I'm your host, Khalid. We're going to be having a conversation with you guys. The Sunday podcast is a nice laid back time for us to just sit and discuss different things that has happened in our lives, in cricket, in everything, basically. So this type of show. We sit back, we relax. I'll wait on to see who's going to be joining me on the podcast and having a conversation with us as well. But this is my time to obviously connect with you guys. And now, I guess we can start off the show probably with some news that has broken recently over the course of today. Um, and that is the statement from Paul Adams. We know that there is currently a situation with Mark Boucher where he's going to obviously be under certain investigation, etc. And it all stemmed from Paul Adams in the beginning. It all stemmed from Paul Adams, his testimony that he made at the beginning in at the SJN. That stemmed basically everything that proceeded after that really opened up a can of worms that a lot of people never wanted to be opened. But he explained his situation. But since then, there's been talk about whether he's going to testify at Boucher's hearing or not. He put out a statement today. I went to the SJN with no malice, but with good intentions so that the present and future players, irrespective of race, wouldn't have to go through what I and other players did in those times, said Adams in a statement released on Sunday. Also, to make people aware that there needs to be education and acknowledgement around racism, and for us to have a greater respect for each other within our society in South Africa. In my testimony, I said that during my time in the national team, there was a culture within that environment that felt it was fine for derogatory nicknames given to me to be sung during fines meetings in the changing room by my fellow teammates. I indicated upon a reflection and after discussing with my wife, my girlfriend at the time, that I felt humiliated by the song. Not at any stage did I mention any player's name who may have initiated the song. The only time I confirmed the name was when the panel asked if I addressed Mark Boucher personally regarding the nickname, and I replied that he was part of a broader group that sang the song and that I never addressed the matter within the team environment at the time. I was young and naive at the time, trying to fit in and represent my country as best I could. Not at any stage did I go into there with the intention to single out Mark Boucher, as one can confirm by listening to my testimony in the YouTube clip from this particular point. And now he's copied in a YouTube link that he played where he speaks about it and where he testifies. Now, if I can play it, that would be great. Yes, okay, cool. Let me just try and play it for you guys on screen so that you guys can watch it with me. So we're reacting live for the first time to a clip. I don't think we've done this before, actually shared a clip like this the way it's been said. Let me just do this quickly. Let me just get it up on the screen so we can react to it together, guys. Sorry, this it takes a bit of time when you are producing your own show. So let me just do this quickly and put it up on the screen, show with audio. Cool, awesome. So this is what he said, and this is what he referred to within his testimony.
Then I go from there was from about 98 onwards. This happened within the team environment. So there were teammates, everyone, and it's one where it's always just stood with me. My wife now was my girlfriend then. She would always make a comment to me about it, or suggest or talk to me about why they talking to you like that, or why do they call you that name. It's not right. And I just used to just shrug it off. I was called brown shit when I was playing, and often used to be a song that used to happen when we won a game and we were in fines meetings. They used to sing brown shirt in the ring, tra la 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 la. So
Yes.
they would make the song up of it. But it's when you're playing for your country, when you're in that victory, you don't make sense of it. You just go along with it. You brush it off. But it's actually blatantly racism. It's those language that I'm talking about, that education that's required. I think some people will come across and they'll say unconscious biases. They will say they weren't aware. And this is why we actually also here. It's to change that, to change how we think and see people. Understand the history we've gone through. And these things only came to me really after my playing days. It's just been sitting in my head, and I haven't had a platform. I've only spoken it to close friends. And I share the sentiments with my fellow black cricketers who were also part of all these things, So it's a hard journey. It's tough. It just breaks you down mentally, slowly and slowly. So they wouldn't call a white player a white shirt or anything like that. It was always used brown shirt, So it comes to me afterwards only. So it's quite a tough one. And again, I'm going to say it's education. It's our systems. It doesn't stem.
So that's interesting that he's saying that it's our systems, it's the education. It's very important that we do educate the next generation. That things like this it's not okay. To label people in this way. Now, yes, like Paul has said in his statement, he never mentioned anything about Boucher specifically in this part of his testimony. Let's just listen to the end of it. We've got a couple of minutes to go, about 5 minutes to go.
From our household? Does it stem from our schooling? That is there a place where we have to educate people what is racism? What language?
Yeah, we should. We must.
Respect? Do we have respect for people and one another? So that is a few incidents that I've documented, and I felt it was important from my playing days that I think the SJN can draw from, and I think take forward within team environments, from youth right through till professional cricket, that we don't want to see again. I'd like to move on now to my coaching career.
Mr. Adams, may I just interject there?
I think this is the part
When
of Boucher.
Mark Boucher called you brown shit, did you ever address him personally?
No, well, I never addressed him really personally. Mark was probably just one of the guys that did all it. It only happened to me afterwards. That's why I said I was all caught up in the fun, in the whole thinking of being along within the team, and not wanting to ruffle feathers or do anything. So for me it was, when I thought about it, when my wife kept telling me, "Why do they call you that?" And then I realized that it wasn't right. You never know what could else be happening out there within the team environments to people, and people think it could still be okay to call people that. I'm highlighting that it should never happen. And if we take this forward in the right manner, in the right way, we will have a lot more respect for each other. And maybe he should come and say sorry. Maybe that is all that needs to happen. But it's something that it shouldn't be brushed under the carpet. We should air. We should, if we want our teams within Cricket South Africa to have the right ethics, the right mentality, the right respect for one another, we should air these things. No one's going to come sweep here under the carpet. That's why I've built up the courage to come and actually talk about it today. That's why it's taken a lot for me to be here and dig up some of these memories. It's taken a long time to actually to go through some of these things, and I felt a lot of emotion as well. So yeah, it's one where let's we're not here to break down the whole system. We're actually here to build a better structure, better way going forward for Cricket South Africa.
Okay, so that's the part that he's talking about within his statement that he put out today. He continues to say, it's not my job or desire to find Mark Boucher guilty or not guilty and to be cross-examined and turned into the main focus of attention. Therefore, I will not be testifying at Mark Boucher's upcoming disciplinary hearing, continued Adams. I spoke my truth of what happened to me as a young player, as per the process adopted by CSA on a serious issue in the game. The feelings articulated by myself and 36 other senior players and coaches last year will hopefully help CSA find a new way in making cricket a winning and binding game for all. Again, my wish is the same. My wish is that the same environment that existed when we played must never repeat itself. If changes are made and situations such as these are learned from, then my purpose of telling my story at SAN has been achieved. Thank you to everyone who has listened and for all the support during these difficult conversations. So that is the statement that was made. Now, the question was about Mark Boucher, and the reason I think that Mark Boucher and Graham Smith were highlighted is because of their positions. There's obviously, it's as plain as simple as that. They were the national coach and the director of cricket, two very strong positions within the organization, and unfortunately, those two have been highlighted. And now Boucher is, if Boucher wasn't a national coach, would it have gone this far? I don't know. I don't think so. I think because he is in a national coaching position, that this is happening. So yeah. What from the clip that Adams has sent us, he did not specifically target Mark Boucher. He said Mark Boucher and others amongst who were involved with that. So yeah, that's the latest news we have on this situation, is that Paul Adams won't be testifying. And Mark Boucher will be obviously undergoing this hearing, and we will be waiting and seeing what happens in this. If positives come out of this, which I hope positives do come out of this, I hope that this doesn't change into another negative spiral that we go down as a cricket nation, because the fans suffer, the sport suffers, the players suffer. Administrators, I don't know how much they suffer. But we suffer because the game is tarnished, the situation, the environment, the sport is tarnished. We want as many people and as many fans to watch the sport as possible. We want to grow the sport in this country. And if we can't do so if we have situations like this that is constantly dividing our fan base and constantly dividing the country. So these things must be dealt with in the correct manner and should be dealt with quickly and urgently. So let's hope that there's some positives that come out of this this hearing, Boucher's hearing, that there's positives that come out of it, that it's not just a whole negative media storm. I hope that there's some positives that do come out of it so we can move forward and move on and grow as a nation. We as our age and our generation, we need to lead by example. We need to. That's why I've said, for example, on our channel, that I don't want to use the words like quota and fall into the trap that CSA put us under. They put us under the spell where we kind of feel that we need to use these words, and it's become a discriminatory word against players rather than a word that is used to explain a system. It's used in a discriminatory way against players of color, and that's why I refuse to use that word. I refuse to talk about that type of word. If I say a player is bad, he's bad because he's bad. It's not because he's black, white, or colored, or Indian, or whatever the case may be. It's literally because he's not doing his job as a cricketer, and we are allowed to discriminate. But as soon as we get into racial grounds, that's when things get a bit dodgy. Destroyer says he was the first year. Thank you for coming to the show, brother. Lawrence Bailey saying, with Paul Adams not testifying at the hearing, is kind of a spanner in the works for CSA. But I don't think CSA has a vendetta over here. They need to go through the right channels. They need to do it right this time, and they need to do it right continuously, the the next time as we go forward. Don't know if you heard, but apparently Boucher and his legal team wants the hearing to be media public. They clearly sound confident. I hope it is. And that's brave from Boucher, but it's also, I respect him for that, because the country needs to know the truth. And Boucher needs to come out and testify. We need to hear his words, and the nation needs to hear his words. He is the national coach. And it will tell a lot about him as a person and as about a figure in South African cricket currently. It also will possibly open up the opportunity, if he's innocent, that he keeps his job, perhaps. That could also be on the card. So if that is true, Lawrence, I think that's a good move. I think it's a good move from Boucher's part, because being as transparent as possible in situations like this is very important. And then the whole world would have heard, I mean, the whole of South Africa would have heard his hearing, and we would have seen him put under pressure and see him go under questioning, etc. And we will all see his answer, and we can all say whether he's genuine or not. If that's the case, maybe we could do a watch along, guys. Perhaps that could be an option, where we actually watch it together on screen and talk about it, talk about the different clips. If we don't do a watch along, what we perhaps will do is take clips and talk about those clips on the show, like we normally always used to do on this channel anyway. We used to take clips of certain aspects and then speak about it. We did it with the Solekele and the Graham Smith situation. We did it with some of the parts that we saw in the SJNs throughout the SJN. So we will do the same for Boucher's hearing and give you guys up-to-date news on the matter as best as we possibly can. It was reported by a Rapport Sunday newspaper, and Tinus does seem to have an inside scoop on this whole story. So it would be also interesting to have a chat with him as well and see where he stands as a journalist, because it's difficult, because there's a one side of reporting what you've been told and for your audience, and then there's another thing about talking about what you believe. And I would like to actually hear what Tinus thinks and what this has taught him as a young journalist, covering this particular story. It would be interesting to debate or discussion or whatever it will be. I'll reach out to him and see if he's interested in having a conversation about his findings throughout this. Bibik says, ultimately, the situation is not digestible for racial discrimination is not acceptable. However, why these things come up after 15 plus years when Boucher is in for national duty? You see, Bibik, there were no safe spaces for people to speak up about the traumas that they went through. And like Paul Adams said in his clip, it only dawned on him years later that what it actually was, that it was actually racism, what he actually experienced. And the SJNs only happened recently for people to actually speak about these things in an open environment. A lot of the time, these things were dealt with behind the scenes. They had culture camps. They'll talk about racism in camps, etc. But the public never heard about it or knew about it. This is the first time that the public actually had access to this content and what was being said. So it's actually the first time that has happened. So what that has done for all of us is we have an ability to be able to look at the situation and assess it and for ourselves without being fed certain information. Or some media do that. They alter not alter the meaning, I won't say that, but they go with a specific angle that they know is going to cause problems. Or I remember how the Faf doesn't see color situation got spun out of control. His words were taken out of context completely, because there's a lot of media that write stories that are not at the press conferences. They don't know the context of what was said. And watching a video afterwards doesn't always show the full truth. Being involved within the press conference, you get the mood, you get the feeling. It's a lot different when you're actually in the press conference than taking quotes from someone else's story that has written a story. So yeah, the media can be dangerous. Things can be spun. We can see it currently. There's things happening at the moment in the world that we see. The Johnny Depp and Amber Heard case that is currently happening. That is something that we can all see where the media have spun certain things either for or against Johnny, or for or against Amber, and they completely control the narrative of the way things went. Back then, when he was accused of what he's been accused of, everybody, the whole media said a narrative in a certain way, and people believed the narrative without doing their own research, because we trust the media so much to give us information, and we trust that they are giving us true information. And sometimes that's not always the case. Um, there are times when media lie about situations, or or make situations look a lot worse than it actually is. Sometimes a headline can be misleading. I've seen it on so many occasions that has happened. So we are we have to obviously control take the information, and that's why we are here as a channel, as a community, to read this content and look at the content together as a family and as a group, and then analyze it and debate it in the live chat. I like what Lawrence is doing over here, giving his opinion, speaking about it, and saying what his thoughts are about it, so we can discuss it. I can give my opinion and we can come to a conclusion. If we as a family and as a fan base can come together and at least educate each other and help each other understand situations a lot better, we can progress as a fan base. And if Cricket Fanatics Magazine grows, we will be influencing the next generation of cricket fans so that they can think about the game in the right way, that they're not thinking about it with unconscious bias or with things that they've been told from a racism perspective that is not true. There's a lot of unconscious, or not unconscious, there's a lot of how can I say, disguised racism that happens in this country still today, and prejudices that have been fed to certain generations that they just inherently believe without actually looking for evidence against it. So I would like to think that this channel and us as a community, that we will be forward thinking and be unbiased in the way we think, as best as possible. Obviously, this is my channel and I'm going to have certain opinions, and maybe perhaps I'll be biased with certain opinions that I put across here, but I apologize for that. It will come through. They will have some sort of my opinion and spin on things, but I try to be as unbiased as possible. I like to bring people on the channel that challenge me too, that ask me questions, that try and challenge my point of views, because that's how you get to the end of, that's how you get through things and try get a better understanding of situations. So I would like to do that more often. Lauren saying again, I don't have a problem with the hearing taking place personally. For I just think there was a witch hunt against Boucher right from the start, way before Isha in. But you're right, we need the truth. Yeah, so there was a certain contingency, I would say, that was against Boucher's appointment because of the way it happened. And I understand that, because there was a lot of stories that you guys may not have heard, um, that were flying around the domestic scene and in South African cricket. There were stories flying around and rumors flying around about certain aspects that have been happening behind the scenes that has never been spoken about, that players were too scared to talk out about. And unfortunately, and there are some players that maybe were against the way Boucher coaches or the way his approach is when he coaches. You know, not everybody's going to like the man for his methods. We see it in all sports. You can see, like, Man United is the perfect example. The whole team were fighting for Ollie and were all Ollie at the wheel and all behind him, and he trusted those players and put everything into them and put his trust and belief into them. And they just turned around and stabbed him in the back. They just turned around and completely, like, threw him under the bus and didn't care. Even someone that they love to do something like that. I mean, it's crazy that we had to see that in action. And so even professionals that are earning that amount of money, I mean, you're not always going to like your coach. There's certain aspects that you're not. So I think that this SHN needed to happen, and the reason why there was an emphasis on Graeme Smith and Boucher is because that they were in high positions in South African cricket, and I think that's why they needed to sort that out. I think there were quite a few other things that also happened. There wasn't as much profile on it. There wasn't as much media attention on those stories. It was more obviously on the big name stuff that can sell or papers or can obviously generate clicks. That's obviously the way the media thought about it. I don't think any media person had the time and the effort and the interest to cover the entire issue in word for word, bit by bit, every single case. Um, there would be somebody just and the highlights of the main things that stepped out, but going in depth. Like I think that Dr. Musaji's testimony needed a lot more focus, which wasn't given really necessarily. I've given a lot of airtime on here. I've spoken about a lot of here, but I don't feel that there was enough media support and talk about what he had to say and the things that he witnessed. So that was very interesting. Don't you think CSA is making a mess? Basically everything. For a few weeks back, CSA argued for Smith's dismissal. Yet now they want him back heading up the new tournament set to start in January. You see, it's difficult, Lawrence, when you speak of CSA like they're a thing, like CSA as a person, because there's been so many different people in and out of CSA in the last 4 years that have made different decisions that look similar, and everybody's almost painted with the same brush as CSA as the organization. There are certain particular people within CSA that need to go and are responsible for a lot of the stuff that has been happening. If that changes, we could have CSA being spoken in a good light. It doesn't need to be in a negative light. And they have been making a mess of a lot of things in certain areas, but not everything has been related. And not everything has been one person that's making a mistake. So we don't understand what this is currently. We don't understand who's responsible for what mistakes that are happening. If we can dissect it a little bit better, it would be easier for us to understand. But we need transparency from CSA as well, because in that way, then we can also assess who's making the mistakes. Like, for example, with United, we blame the board all the years, but there were certain incompetent people within high positions with Man United that have left now. Hopefully, we turn the corner now, but that have left and that were toxic and that were not doing their job correctly and were incompetent when it comes to football and understanding football. They have now left and they replaced them with more football people that are more competent. So let's see. I know you don't like Lawson Naidu, but Lawrence, I don't know enough about Lawson to be able to give an exact opinion on him. I think that there's certain things that he did, and he has done so far that I think were good things that he's done. And also, he's only been in the role more recently, so I don't think it's fair to brush everything or to put all the problems of CSA on Lawson alone. That is kind of unfair. It's kind of fun. That's kind of like scapegoating him, because the problems that were there or are here now have been at CSA even before he came into the role. So I don't think he can just click his fingers and change everything. There's a lot that needs to be changed, and we should give props for the good that he's done as well. Like, I think that it was the correct move from him to speak, to allow the team to decide on what stance they want to stand with regards to kneeling. But the timing was incorrect. So you can't get everything 100% correct, but we're hoping that they can start getting things 100% correct going down the line. So let's see what happens. I mean, I would love to speak to Lawson Naidu and get his understanding of where he stands and how he thinks about cricket going forward in South Africa. It would be an interesting conversation to have with him, to get an understanding of where he stands, or how much actually he was involved in with the stuff that has went incorrectly, the reasoning behind certain decisions that they've made, all of those type of things. I mean, Lawrence, if you've seen an interview of him or you've seen something of him that you saw maybe on YouTube that you think is interested, it would be nice to us to maybe react together and watch that video and assess some of the things that he said in the past, or something that has made you think that he's a clown, for example, like you said in the live chat. For me, it's very difficult to put the blame all on one person, because there's been a lot of people in the past that have come and gone and failed, and they've caused it's almost an impossible task to in a way. You literally have to just scrap it all and just restart, because that's how bad CSA has been destroyed. Now they've made some good moves forward. Like, for example, I like that the moves that they've made recently with this new T20 league. It looks exciting to me. Something a positive move forward. I think that the move to create the two divisions in cricket, I think that was a good move. I think it will actually save cricket in South Africa. I know a lot of people might think that the franchise system would, but if they can have a franchise tournament like a T20 tournament like they have now, I think it's more valuable or viable, because having a franchise system means that you must have a franchise team for every format: 4-day, 1-day, and T20. The one that makes you the most money, you use the least amount of money to create that tournament. So T20s, I think, will be a lower budget for a team to set up and to host than a 4-day game. So to have franchise cricket for all of it could cause a problem when it comes to making money as a franchise, if I think about it logically. But if you have your domestic setup protected, and it's all about cricket and not about money, it's about producing cricketers, good quality cricketers for the country, and then you have tournaments that are branched off, like this T20 competition. I think that's an excellent tournament, because it's a franchise tournament where players can make money and they can express their skills, and it can make CSA money, and that's the money making machine. I think that's a lot better way to look at it and go with it. We don't get numbers enough in the 4-day arena, for example, for us to be able to make enough money to say, this is profitable as a franchise. Whereas I feel if they have a separate tournament like this T20 competition that we're going to be speaking about a little bit more in depth today, I know the first half was all about Paul Adams, and it just happened that broke, but today that we had to speak about it. But I would like to speak a little bit more about this T20 competition. I think there's a lot of good coming our way. The Cullen asking, does anyone know what the name of the new T20? No, nobody knows yet. They're going to be revealing it to us. Obviously, they'll probably have a little ceremony type of vibes, type of event where they reveal the name and the team names and who's owning what team. They'll probably have a whole event again, like they always do. Hopefully, we get invited to the event. That would be awesome. If that is the case, we can cover the event live. That would be sick for all of you guys. Hopefully, that does happen. But I'm excited. I know a lot of people are worried about the Indian influence, and that's maybe something that we can talk about right now. Just 2 seconds. Yeah. So yeah, let's talk about this T20 competition. I'm waiting still for Aditya to join us. Hopefully he does join us. He was on his way home when we started the podcast. It would be nice to have a chat with him, because obviously being Indian and everything, it does help. But yeah, for me personally, when it comes to this T20 competition, I like the fact that there is Indian influence from an IPL perspective, not just general Indian influence, but like IPL specific experience. Because I think it's good for your first inaugural tournament to have people that know how to run a tournament like this involved. With the MSL, for example, there was a lot of differences in the way different teams ran their franchises. Each individual team had their own strategies with regards to the way they. Here's a teacher with us. Each individual franchise had their own strategy in the way they run things. So there wasn't necessarily like a universal understanding of how franchises do media, how franchises do XYZ. Every franchise had their own thing. Like, for example, I got full access to the Paul Rocks, like behind the scenes, everything, where I didn't have the same access maybe at the Blitz or at the Josie Stars or the other franchises. I had full access to Nelson Mandela Bay training when they came to Cape Town. I had full access to the Blitz because I had a relationship with some of the guys there already. So the way people covered certain things in the MSL was kind of up to the MSL teams. They controlled it. Where I think that in India, in the IPL, what it seems like there are certain media strategies that are put in place as for the tournament as a whole, and then within that you have certain things that each individual franchise does uniquely. Where I feel that that's not necessarily what happened with us. Not like I guess also the media weren't as involved with the tournament as we hoped. There were a lot of big name journalists that didn't cover the MSL actually like as in depth as everybody else, like being there doing exclusive interviews, all of those type of things. I think we probably hit the ball out of the park when it came to MSL coverage. Like the amount of coverage we gave and behind the scenes content, guys, you could literally relive the entire MSL on our channel alone. Like if you go back. So yeah, I think with Supersport it'd probably be a little bit different, but I like that there are people that can give certain ideas about these things that are involved. Um, Aticha, did you do some more research on that, on the guy that we spoke about last time? That you can maybe give us some insight onto it? Because I mean, for me, the IPL influence, I would call it, rather than Indian influence. I think it's a good thing for South Africa. Um, at least we'll know how to run a successful tournament from the get go and not losing money to make money.
Yeah, so this individual, W. Sundaraman, he's been on the scene for years. He's an experienced campaigner. He understands administratively. He's a strong character, and obviously he's been involved with the IPL since its inception. And of course, he has an understanding of the South African cricketing landscape as well, because he was one of those figures. If you remember, in 2009, India basically set up that tournament in South Africa within 25 days. So you can imagine the amount of administration that went into that entire process, because it's not easy. It's not easy taking a tournament that's the scale of the IPL to South Africa within a span of just over 3 weeks. So uh, he's very respected in the India media, in the Indian cricketing ecosystem, and he hasn't been involved with the IPL since 2013, but since then he's been a part of Reliance Sports Industries, and that's the company that basically owns the Mumbai Indians. So he's still been involved in sport and its administration, but obviously roles have changed for the last bit. But it's encouraging to see his name pop up for this particular tournament. I think there's definitely benefit then. It helps to have an experienced campaigner to do that, because this guy has seen the evolution of the IPL, and we mustn't forget that for the first 3 years of the tournament, the IPL wasn't a profitable tournament. It was just about breaking even, and the margins were minimum for franchises. But it was only post 2011 when the entire broadcast ecosystem in the country just blew up, and now we're talking about billion-dollar figures. So he's seen the evolution of it, and I feel like that's where his experience will come in handy for South African cricket. You're neutral.
When about did he have an influence on the IPL? Was he there from the beginning?
Yeah, he
Okay.
was.
Then that's
And
perfect
and
for
before
me,
that,
because rather
and
taking
before that as well.
someone, okay, but even better, because
Yeah.
I'll rather take someone that is experienced at building something from scratch. Now, I know I'm using it with other things that I am talking about. Like, for example, the Marvel Cinematic Universe. They rebuilt the whole franchise from starting with Iron Man, rebuilding it from the start, brought someone in there that was from the originals, from the original crew, and started from the beginning. Brought people from Marvel involved to get that story back to what it was before. Manchester United brought in someone, Ralph Ragnick, that is a person that is good at rebuilding clubs from scratch or building clubs from the ground up. So the fact that they brought someone in that has the knowledge of building something from nothing into something, that's what South Africa needed at this time. It would have been a different conversation we'd be having here If they brought in someone that came halfway through the IPL and just took the IPL from already here till there, I think that jump is easier than taking the jump from the beginning, starting off. The hardest thing about starting anything is that starting beginning period when you're not making money. He did. So like that's probably the most difficult part of starting anything new. So we're getting someone that has experience in doing exactly that, and I think that is very promising for South Africa, in my opinion.
There are a lot of the different factors that come with staging a successful tournament have this interdependent sort of relationship, right? Because in order to have a successful tournament, you obviously need to have great cricket. So the standard of cricket has to be good. Then it's equally important to market that standard of cricket. So what's happening is that these guys who market the new tournament in South Africa are basically competing with virtually everything that they've got in prime time, and they have to make sure that the cricket is better than everything that they've got. Over a period of time, they've managed to do that in India. Now post-COVID, it's obviously a different situation, but
Yeah.
there was a time for it. I want to say at least 8 to 10 years where Bollywood movies would not release during the IPL because producers feared that no one would go watch the movies. Now, whether that's accurate or not, whether that's whether
Man.
that's accurate or not, the fact that that's even a thought in the minds of certain businesses, in film businesses in the country, it speaks volumes of the fact that the standard of cricket is right up there, and people will prefer that to watching a movie. So similarly with South Africa, that's something that ultimately that's what your tournament is going to be based on: standard of cricket and how well you market that standard of cricket over a period of time. So
You know what, Aditya, I'm going to counter that. Because the reason I say maybe not, I think South Africa need to look at other ways of attracting people to the game again. And not necessarily a good standard of cricket is going to do that alone. And I'll tell you why. The MSL 1 and 2 had some great standard of cricket. I mean, if you speak to some of the players like Owen Morgan and Dwayne Bravo, and I mean, I've interviewed quite a few of them off camera, away from the media hype, and spoke to them actually about the standard. Liam Livingston, actually, we had a long conversation with him. The standard of cricket was never the problem with AMSL. I thought that the standard of cricket was actually very exciting, very close games, competitive cricket, very good cricket, and yet it still never attracted anybody to the stadiums. Now, there was a misconception from media, from people around the tournament, that this is a crap tournament, that is not going to do well. The SAPC is involved. It's a crappy tournament. CSA are crap, blah, 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 blah. And that was the narrative that was posted to the fans. So naturally, fans would read in the biggest news publications all this crap about the MSL. Then on top of it, the main broadcaster in South African cricket wasn't the broadcaster of the tournament. So a lot of companies that had associations with SuperSport could not necessarily produce the content about the tournament as freely and as openly as they would want to, because of that obviously friction between South Africa and SuperSport at the time. So the amount of coverage about the MSL was very low. Possibly the only great thing that came out of it is the fact that it was broadcast to India, and you guys got an opportunity to watch some of the games, because I think that really saved the MSL's attention, the digital standpoint of things, because of the way we were covering the tournament, the way others were that were doing digital things as well. That helped it and saved it. Whereas I think right now we need to find ways on getting people to the ground. I feel that South Africans will fall in love with the game again when they're there, because of the crowd, because of the game itself. I think the T20 game is the perfect way to do it. But I think that we need to find ways on getting people to whether it's a buy one get one free beers, or whether it's buy one get one free meals, or tokens, or little games that are happening for the kids on the ground, or whatever the case may be. meeting your hero at the end of the game at the table with a signing. Like I saw that Cape Town Blitz started doing things like that, but it was left up to the franchises to do that by themselves, to come up with those ideas for themselves, to get people into the stadium, and to get people there. What are Paul Rocks doing differently from a marketing perspective to what the Cape Town Blitz are doing, or to what the Josie Stars are doing, to whatever it may be. Now we know that cricket is more popular in Johannesburg than it is in Cape Town, from purely by just looking at the amount of numbers that turn up at games when there's a massive game happening between with the Lions or the Titans, compared to Newlands. Now Newlands still, I think, domestically does turn out quite a bit of numbers when it comes to certain games, when it comes to T20 and limited overs games, but also because of the time that things are played. I mean, the IPL went as deep as going as making sure that they have specific times that they're going to have the games, and they know what times it's going to be consistently through the tournaments. Over the years, it's been almost identical. Super Sundays, all of those type of things that they've been putting up here to create this hype around the game. Besides the standard of cricket, I think there's a lot of marketing that needs to take place with this tournament to make it successful, to get people to fall in love with cricket again. Because unfortunately, people are falling out of love with cricket, and it doesn't help that your national team is not good at what they're doing either. They're not necessarily performing at the level at tournaments where the team wants to be behind them. And South Africans, we have a successful sporting team that we are all behind and follow. The Springboks, they've won multiple World Cups, and unfortunately, we live in a country where our devotion to sports teams has been divided. There are certain Black African people that wouldn't even support cricket or rugby, come out of it, only football, because of whatever the case may be. And there are certain white people that wouldn't support football again. They'll only support rugby and cricket. But then, of course, there's certain people that, in general, that also choose one of the sports, that like certain sports. So our affinity and support to clubs or to our country and sports is very, very meshed up. A lot of us are football, cricket, and rugby fans, or cricket and rugby fans, or football and rugby fans. We support both teams, three sports that are big sports within South Africa. So that devotion and that support is divided within South Africa, which is a little bit different in India, I feel. Because in India, it's like your number one sport, like majority people support it and watch. It's almost a religion on its own in a way, cricket in the country, I would say. Like football is in England, like football is in the Netherlands. You can see how crazy those people are watching their team, supporting the team. So we need to create that within our fan base, and I'm hoping that Cricket Fanatics Magazine can help create that. Build the love for cricket again, and see why cricket is such an important sport for the development of people and players and for the country. I think it's a great sport to bring people together, and we need to bring that feel good factor of cricket, going to a game, spending hours away from home, having fun with the friends, being at the ground, watching your favorite stars. Those are all things that we need to get that love back, that people see, like, you know what, there's a reason for us to go to the cricket beyond cricket. I think that's how we will grow this, the love for cricket again in the country. But you're right. There needs to be a focus on the standard of cricket 100%. But I do feel that South Africa the standard of cricket tends to be quite good, generally speaking.
But you have to communicate that the standard of cricket is unbelievable, right? Because ultimately, if you look at the numbers, probably going to have, let's say, 25,000-30,000 people at a stadium, but you can potentially reach 60 million people in their homes. That's what you got to aim for, and I think that's something that the IPL has done very well. Because that at a stadium at any given time, and you look at the temperatures today. For example, today is a great example. There were two games, and the first game between RCB and SRH was at 3:30 p.m. Trust me, I would not step out of my house at 3:30 p.m. It is that hot. It is sweltering out there. Yet there were 30,000 people at the Wankhede Stadium cheering these two teams. And sure, that's great. And the IPL will appeal to these 30,000 people. They're going to try to make sure that these guys have the best experience possible. but at the same time, they're going to try to cater to the millions of people who are going to be watching it on digital platforms as well as television, and that is a significant part of the priority.
And that's a big
Like
problem with SuperSport having the rights to this. That's the
like
one
with
big problem I have. South Africa is going to need to put streaming platforms in place, streaming
yeah,
ways of watching this game, because only 4, 5, or I think it's 5 or 6% of the South African population have DSTV. So SuperSport, who have SuperSport. So and less of them have SuperSport actually, because with the cheaper, more affordable packages like DSTV Compact, you don't even get the cricket channel. So the amount of people that are watching cricket in South Africa are even less, because SuperSport control the rights to the cricket. So only a minor percentage, probably about 1% or 2% of people in South Africa watch cricket, like on TV. It's crazy.
that's very unfortunate because
Yeah.
compare that, like Mumbai versus Chennai, for example. That's known as Mumbai versus Chennai and RCB versus Chennai. The Mumbai versus Chennai is known as El Clasico of the IPL, and RCB versus Chennai, that has its own place in the tournament's narrative because they're both, the South Indian teams. So this season, I think Mumbai versus Chennai, RCB versus Chennai, and possibly Hyderabad versus Chennai. I think they garnered the most viewership. But in previous seasons, and obviously we have to attribute a little bit of that to lockdowns and the fact that everyone was at home as well, to the fact that close to 250 million people watched Mumbai versus Chennai in the last two IPLs. Those those are staggering numbers. It that's comparable to the English Premier League. You know, so
It's crazy.
but also
But
sorry,
that's the problem.
one more thing I want to say is that if earlier this year, when RCB were announcing the captain, okay, they announced Faf as captain. They had this entire day dedicated to unboxing. That's what they called it. They called it unboxing, and it was basically like an 8-hour concert where there's music, there's performances. They announce the
Insane.
captain. They announce the captain. They do a presentation of sorts where they
Wow.
explain, where they basically explain to the public that that RCB is, I think, the fifth or the sixth most engaged sporting team on social media. Like they get over 1 billion mentions per season or something like that. It was a crazy statistic. But for that unboxing event, and it happened on Saturday, if I remember correctly. And Faf flew down from South Africa for this event, after which he went into quarantine and he started the IPL. But there were hundreds of thousands of people on the streets of Bangalore. Hundreds
Wow.
of thousands of people. And RCB is not even won a trophy yet. So they're doing something right. Like their marketing team is unbelievable.
And that's the thing what I'm talking about. Like, I mean, what made the Paul Rock so successful, right, at the MSLs both seasons was their marketing. They filled up their stadium, even though it was only 7,000 people or whatever the case may be. They filled up their stadium every single week. They got that numbers and record breaking numbers because of their marketing team. The amount of effort that they put in, wow, unbelievable marketing team they had. Um, and they put in a lot of effort to do other things to attract people there. They had these little, like, they had these dancers come on the field and dance. They had an MC that was emceeing the event. It was fun. It was things in the crowd, competitions. It was posters up and people getting in. There was adverts around the Paul area to get people into the stadium. Those are all important things that need to happen, but that was left up to the franchises alone to do that, because the amount of work that each franchise did was more than the MSL actually did at promoting the MSL as an event. Like, it's crazy. But the one thing the MSL did right was getting SABC involved, is because SABC broadcasts to 80% to the whole country. Everybody can get access to SABC as long as you have a TV license. So like literally everybody has SABC. So that was a smart way to do it and get more numbers obviously involved with regards to watching the sport. But with this now, with SuperSport, I feel like they are going to be hoping that a large portion of the viewership is going to come from India with the Indian involvement. I think that they're going to hope for that Star and all the Hot Star and all that stuff that you guys have. Hot, I don't know what all the names of the different broadcasters you have, but when they get involved, that's where majority of the numbers are going to come from. Actually, with regard to TV, like I said, I think about 3% of this population in the country is probably going to have access to this particular games. And this is a thumb suck number. I don't know the exact numbers, but I definitely know that SuperSport is expensive and we know the poverty rate in South Africa. Logically speaking, not everybody can afford a full DSTV package, and that's the only way you can get cricket is if you have the full DSTV package. That's 1,000 a month. So, good luck.
What's the number?
So a full DSTV package, the full complete package, premium package, is about 1,000 a month. And that's the only way you can watch cricket. So what they've done is they know that DSTV knows that SuperSport is probably the most popular aspect of their bouquet. Every person almost that has DSTV buys DSTV for the sports package, because you get SuperSport 1, 2, 3. This is how it used to work. Just to give you an understanding, the channels have changed now. There's more sporting channels. But originally it used to be SuperSport 1 used to be rugby, SuperSport 2 used to be cricket, SuperSport 3 used to be Premier League football, and SuperSport 4 used to be PSL football, and then 5, 6, and 7 used to be extra channels to play other sports or to play other Premier League matches or whatever the case may be. Okay, so that's just to give you guys an understanding. But if you bought Compact, which is the cheaper version, they only gave you SuperSport 3 and 4. They never gave you 1 and 2, which is the main sports in South Africa, cricket and rugby. You needed to pay for the full bouquet to get 1 and 2. So that's the problem in South Africa with regards to DSTV. So you need to have the full 1,000 rand package for you to be able to watch SuperSport. Now, I think they are going to be putting in place digital packages now, where you can have a digital streaming only package, but it's 5 seconds delayed or something like that. So it's not necessarily live. They've already reduced. So DSTV already reduced the amount of numbers you can share the DSTV online with. So only one person can watch DSTV. It's called DSTV Now, which is obviously DSTV online. Only one person can watch it at the time. So before, people used to share out their passwords, basically, and I'll say I gave it to you, Aditya, and you can watch DSTV at your home, and I can watch it in my home too, even though you're not paying for DSTV per month. So people were doing that, generally speaking, as well, and then they put a stop to that, obviously, now, because now you can't share it to more than one, etc., etc. So it's gonna cause a problem from a viewership perspective. That's why we need to make sure in South Africa that we can get people into the stadiums to watch the game. Because if that doesn't happen, there's going to be a large portion of people that are not going to be able to watch these matches. That's a problem.
Over the long term, and I'm pretty sure that if there's some sort of if there's some sort of Indian influence on how the cricket is presented to the audience, there has to be another way. Because on Hotstar, we're not even taking cable TV into consideration right now. If you just want a Hotstar subscription, it's either 200 rand or 300 rand per year.
Per year.
I
was clicking. I was per month. I was like, okay, that makes sense. But per year. Jesus.
Yeah, and somewhere, and I think, what is it? I think 50 million people in India have a Hotstar subscription.
That's incredible.
So that's where most of Indian cricket, IPL and international, streams on Hotstar. And it's definitely an advantage for South African cricket to be streaming on Hotstar. But then again, the disadvantage is that India plays a lot of cricket through the year. And sure, it's great to be watching South African cricket as well. But if there isn't a more attractive financial package there for South Africans, then I think we're doing South Africans a great disservice. And
yeah. But you see, Aditya, that's unfortunate because the numbers, we can't do anything about the numbers. Unfortunately, like even if every single person in South Africa watched cricket, it won't even come close to the amount of people that watch cricket in India. Like not even close. So like we are already behind with regards to that. So they need to find other ways so that they can make this profitable enough. And I think tapping into the India market is possibly the only way they can actually make it more profitable. And I think that's what they're doing. They try. I think that's also why they brought someone like him in, Sundar Raman in, because I think he also will know how to package us internationally to others, to like India and other countries as
Without
well
doubt.
from a digital perspective. So unfortunately, South Africa can't rely on TV broadcast alone and with SuperSport involved. If SABC was still involved, that dream was still alive because it's difficult because South Africans have now. So when you look at the media section and you're looking at TV and what's popular in South Africa on TV and what's not popular on TV in South Africa, it opens up your eyes a lot because the MSL had to put the MSL broadcasting at certain time slots that don't affect some of the popular shows that South Africans are used to watching. So on SABC, people are used to coming home watching Seven de Laan. It's like a soapy over here that we have in South Africa, which is Afrikaans soapy. Funny enough, it's one of the most popular soapies in the country. And then you've got that and Generations that comes on SABC 1 maybe or 2. And then you've got like Isidingo that comes on. Like these loads of soapies that people watch during this prime slot. So they basically for the MSL, they took that prime slot after the news because the news is probably one of the most viewed channel or time slots in South Africa when it comes to broadcasting. So they brought and then the slot after and before the news because there's some soapies that happened before and after. So they decided to slot in the MSL directly after the news so that they get that time slot. But then certain things were pushed. So like the OC of Nalan and all of those things were pushed back because or forward so that they could fit in the MSL, you know. So it was quite weird. What they need to do it for SABC to be able to. I mean, if SABC opened up a sports channel alone, I think that would be something that could really be amazing for South Africa. But it's unfortunate that our SABC are bankrupt and they're doing poorly, and a lot of corruption happened there that completely destroyed that company. I don't know when they're going to recover and when they can get a synergy with SuperSport where they can both win, because we need to think about cricket and not about their own pockets. And I doubt that's going to happen. I think people are going to think about their pockets and about the profit, and they're not going to think about what's best for cricket in South Africa. Whereas I think MSL, they focus what is best for cricket in South Africa and never really thought about the money aspect. And that's where that fell. So they need to find like a middle ground. I thought the global T20 would have been the middle ground because they tried to find an independent broadcaster for that reason. Because if you find an independent broadcaster, then everybody's forced to watch it there only. Then it's a synergy. You don't have SABC and then like, oh, but the SuperSport people are like, now stuff you, I don't want to watch you. But then you have SuperSport and like, oh no, but the SABC people are like, now no stuff you. And then like you don't have that issues if it's independent. So right thought process, but wasn't implemented correctly.
You know when when the IPL started, and obviously Indians watch a lot of soap operas and we've got a primetime news and all of that as well, right? But the attitude of the IPL was basically that for 6 weeks or 8 weeks, whatever it is, this is when we're going to play. You figure it out. I'm not even asking. That's what the IPL's attitude was. So, and obviously everyone had to comply because cricket is the is religion in this country.
Exactly.
And
It's not
ultimately
here.
even with Bollywood, for example, Indians, we love Bollywood, but for whatever reason, you know, uh, Bollywood producers for a long time they did not release movies during the IPL, but then eventually they realized that they might as well do it because at some point, if teams that people are supporting crash out or they're not playing that well, they want an alternative source of entertainment. So
Hmm.
Fill up
I
the
think the
theaters.
only universal religion in South Africa is braai. Even the vegetarians have taken onto it now. They're braaiing watermelons on the grill and cucumbers and all this weird shit. Like that, I was like,
I mean,
whoa,
I
craziness.
did. I fried like green peppers and onions and yellow
That's
peppers
fine,
and
yeah. But have you done
stuff.
watermelon yet? It's crazy. Like I've seen crazy stuff. Like watermelon steak. Have you heard about it?
No.
So literally, people slice slices of watermelon and they put it on the grid and like on coals or on flames or whatever, and they braai it. Basically, they barbecue it, both sides, and they baste it like a basting sauce and everything. Apparently, it tastes like steak. I highly doubt it, but that's what I've heard. So, I mean,
Yeah.
that's the only thing I think in South Africa that is universal. Like, I mean, mushrooms on the grill, peppers, onions, things like that on the grill are amazing. Toasties on the grill are amazing. I think that's the only universal language that we have. I think SuperSport need to tap into that. If they can tap into braaiing, if they have a braai section at the flippin' at the stadium and stuff, that I think that would also create more people to come to the stadium and spend their day there, because there's food, there's braai, there's chill. I don't like, literally, it's the one time I see people from different races, cultures, everything combined with each other and mix is over braai. It's like it's amazing. Just say that there's going to be fire and wood or coals, and you people will mix automatically. So I don't know, like so one thing that I can say that all South Africans probably do, um, I- even with rugby, they still, like, even though rugby is such a massive sport in South Africa, it's huge. I mean, DJ, if you see the effort that is put into rugby in this country, from a school level to right up into, you'll understand why our team is so successful, why the Springboks are so successful as a nation, as a national team, even though we are such a small country. If the same amount of effort was put into cricket, our cricket would be there too. Now, it doesn't help that when there was that effort being put in, South Africa weren't winning trophies when they were put into the situations to do so. And I think that hurt South Africa over the years. We become known as chokers. Is a negative connotation around cricket that we need to erase. And that's our job here as Cricket Fanatics Magazine as well, is to recreate that love for cricket in South Africa. To know that, because we have amazing talent here that just doesn't get an opportunity to show. Like Peter October saying over here, his greatest desire is to see colored cricketers get contract in the IPL. Now, unfortunately, our colored players or players of color haven't put on the numbers to the degree that that those players or on the right stages where they have been seen by IPL or people that are interested in IPL. Um, our players haven't necessarily put on the performances, and we need to create that environment. And I think this tournament is perfect to do so, to give more people exposure, because all we need is the right people to be able to watch, and that's it. And we're fine. But guys, let's wrap this up. Aditya, thanks a lot for coming on the show today and having a conversation with us. We'll be back again tomorrow for another daily show. Don't forget to subscribe to this channel, please. Click that notification bell, smash that like button, do all of those things, please, because that's how we get into recommended feeds. Also, don't forget to download the latest issue of Cricket Fanatics Magazine monthly. Every issue is 100% free, straight to your inbox every single month. The link is on the screen as well as in the description. And go to cricketfanaticsmag.com for all updates too. There's also a prompt over there. If you go to cricketfanaticsmag.com, there'll be a pop-up for you guys to sign up to the magazine instantly as well. So we made everything easy for you to find. You can also become a Patreon today. That's how you help us grow as an organization, as a team, from a content perspective. Everything that we do, we need your help and your patronage. So go ahead and become a Patreon today. The link is on the screen as well as in the description. Thanks a lot for watching, everybody. Thank you, Aditya, for coming on the show and having this conversation with me. But we'll continue this conversation going forward. It's something that's worthwhile having. Until the tournament is launched, I think we're going to have loads of conversations around this topic. But we'll see what breaks the rest of the day. South Africa lost to Zimbabwe, even though they already won the series. So that was a little mishap. But other than that, we'll continuously do our coverage as we do per usual. So we'll see you again tomorrow for another daily show. Same time, same place on Cricket Fanatics Magazine. Take care, everybody, and we'll see you very, very soon. Peace.